Well, it's good to be back with you all. I think this is my third time. Yeah, there we go. All right, so must not be so bad, time 1 and 2. And I love that you all are doing this week, Seek Week, and seeking God in His Word, and then tonight talking about seeking God in the valley or seeking God in our suffering. It was about, I guess now it's about 4 years ago, and I started, well, maybe a little longer than 4 years ago, I started getting this cough, and I would do this, and I would like clear my throat all the time. And finally my wife one day was like, Adam, stop it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. You can't go around coughing everywhere. And I had no idea I was doing it. I had no idea that I was coughing, clear my throat like that. And then on top of that, I started getting this pain, like kind of right here in the center of my back. And it was really weird. And I didn't understand. I gave it a couple days. I thought, well, maybe I was just sore and worked out hard or done something funny, slept weird. I was in my 40s. And so I thought maybe so I let it go. It didn't go away. A week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, and so I had this pain, and then the pain started coming kind of from my back up through the front of my chest. And I did what you should never do, which is I went online and I go to WebMD and I'm like, coughing and back and chest pain. And of course it's like you're dying tomorrow, right? And it says, what it really says is heartburn or indigestion. I'd never had heartburn or indigestion. So I take some Tums, that doesn't work. Then I take some over-the-counter, whatever it is, that doesn't work. So then I go to a gastro guy and he's like, that stuff's junk. None of that'll ever work. Here, writes me a prescription. He says, take this for about a month. So I take it for about a month, nothing happens. The pain doesn't go away. It's getting worse, the coughing's getting worse. So he says, come in. So I go in and I get this scan done. And it was a Friday afternoon. We got the scan done, didn't think anything of it, went home. And in the house that we were living in at the time, we had a kitchen and kind of had a high bar between the kitchen and our breakfast room. And we're sitting in there and my phone is kind of sitting up on the counter and Kristen and I are just talking. I don't even know what we're doing. And all of a sudden I look down. We hadn't been home 30 minutes maybe. And I look down and my phone is ringing and it's the doctor's office. Now, if any of you all are doctors, I'm sorry for this. But first of all, doctors don't call you back that fast ever, except when it's not good. And so I pick up the phone and the doctor says, hey, so we found some things on your scans and we need you to come back in tomorrow morning. I'll be in the office about between 6 and 7 a.m. And I went, tomorrow's Saturday. Like, can I come see you next week? And he goes, no, we really need you to come in tomorrow morning about 6 a.m. And I said, hold on a second. I put him on speakerphone and I go, okay, what are we talking about? And he said, well, we found a mass in your neck and we need you to come in and it looks like esophageal cancer. Which if you know anything about esophageal cancer, which I've been around enough of that long enough, doing this, done enough hospital visits, no, that's a couple year thing and then you're done. So we look at each other and we go, okay, so we hang up the phone, we go in the next morning, they do the scans. Good news is it wasn't esophageal cancer. Bad news was it was a tumor that was growing from the front of my neck, about the size of my pointer finger, from the front of my neck across my vocal nerve. So that's why I was coughing, because it felt like somebody was just like pushing on my neck the whole time. And it was growing from the front, it was growing around the back to my spine. And that's why my back was hurting, because it was pushing on all the nerves that were ending right there in my neck. So they do the scan, they find out the tumors are there. We then go on this couple-month journey of all kinds of tests and everything. They end up saying, it's not cancer, it'll be fine, but we have to get them removed. So they go in, they do surgery. While they're doing surgery, they discover that there's not one tumor in there, there's another one, and the one that's sitting behind it, like the size of my pinky finger, they had been biopsying the big one, and that one was benign. When they biopsied the little one, this one behind it, this one was malignant. And so they ended up cutting it all out and taking it all out. And I tell you that because it was real suffering. And it still continues to this day. Like, we thought it was gone, and then about a year and a half ago, it's come back. And so we're still continuing to walk through all of that. It has been physical suffering. It's been emotional suffering. It's been relational suffering. Like, I hate what it's done to our kids and my parents and everybody around us. It's been every kind of suffering. It's been spiritual, all of that. Like, how many of you have suffered or are suffering right now? Raise your hand. Don't compare it to mine. Come on, raise your hand nice and high. Every single one of you. The rest of you are lying in church. Or you're just young, and the bad news is, it's coming. Because listen, Jesus made some astounding promises, right? He said some things like, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I will keep you. And then he made a promise. You don't even have to be a Christian to know this promise is true. Jesus said, in this life, you will have trouble or trial or tribulation or suffering. And that's the truth of life, is that every single one of us either have been, are, or are going to go through suffering. And if you're not going through it right now, chances are you know somebody close to you that's walking through it right now. And when we suffer, suffering and God is one of the most profound questions that we can deal with, isn't it? Now, when we suffer, a lot of us have kind of ways we're gonna deal with it. Like maybe for you, the way you deal with it is you're just gonna deny it, right? Because when I said, are you suffering? You went, well, I don't know. I really don't wanna raise my hand, because if I raise my hand, I have to admit that I'm actually going through something. And so we just think if I ignore it, it'll go away. And that may be one way we try to deal with it. Or another way we try to deal with it is we minimize it, right? Because you go, well, it's not that, like, so maybe my suffering's not really suffering because it's not as bad as this or that. And we try to minimize it. Or we just muscle our way through it, right? You just white knuckle your thing. You're like, I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna get through it. I'm gonna nail it. I'm gonna crush this thing. But you aren't actually really dealing with it. Or maybe you self-medicate your way through it. I mean, it can be as simple as food, or a little shopping therapy, like a little Target will get you right through that afternoon of suffering. Or it can be alcohol, or it can be drugs. Or maybe you just entertain your suffering away. You just think, well, if I upgrade to Hulu without ads, then life will be great. I won't feel any of my pain anymore. Or you drowned it out in busyness. Like the things you'd get involved in could be really, really, really good. I'm gonna get more involved in my kid's school. I'm gonna get more involved on the campus. I'm gonna get more involved at work or whatever it is, which are all wonderful things. But maybe you're using those things in order to try to deal with the pain of the suffering that you're going through. And the truth is, all of those things are like taking a beach ball and shoving them underwater. You know that, like when you were a kid, or you ever go to the beach and you take the beach ball and shove it down underwater? You can keep it under there for a minute, but eventually that thing's coming up. And when it comes up, it doesn't come up like nice and gentle and soft, right? It comes up exploding into somebody's face. And using any of those things to try to deal with suffering is like that. You can keep it down for a minute, but eventually it's coming up. And it's not gonna be pretty when it comes up. I remember when we started to go through all this stuff with cancer, I went back out again, what you shouldn't do. And I started Googling how you deal with all this. And if you Google whatever you've got, how to deal with, you will get pages and pages and pages of tips and tricks. And I remember friends would come by and they'd bring me some like oil, and they're like, hey, you need to rub this like on the bottom of your foot and it'll get rid of your cancer, or quit eating this and start drinking this and sleep this way, and all which could be fine. But I just remember at a certain point in time, I just remember thinking, I'm like right here right now. And I know you mean well by giving me another tip or trick or some good advice, but I can barely stay above water. And you giving me one more thing to do is just another weight and another thing I'm probably gonna fail at. And so here's what I'm convinced of, is that in the middle of our suffering, we don't need any more good advice. What we need is good news. We don't need any more tips and tricks with how to minimize our suffering. What we need to know is, Jesus, are you doing anything in the middle of my suffering? Like, Jesus, what are you doing in my suffering? And we need good news. And so what I want to do is I want to go to John chapter 11. It's the story of a man named Lazarus who dies. And I want to ask the question, Jesus, what are you doing in our suffering? This is not a message for you to take away and go, all right, I'm going to do these 7 things. There's nothing for you to do in this message. But what I hope you walk away from in the middle of your suffering is that you know that Jesus is active in your suffering, that he is doing something really, really good in your suffering. So in John chapter 11, starts in verse 1, it says this. Now there was a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary. Village of Mary and her sister Martha. And it was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. Do you see that? Lazarus is sick, he's ill, and Jesus still loves him. Those two things are not mutually exclusive to one another. You can be suffering and Jesus can be loving you in the middle of that. They're not mutually exclusive. Look, you can see it again. He says it again. He'll say it down in verse 5, that Jesus loved Mary and Martha and Lazarus. He says it again in verse 36. See how he loved him. Love and suffering are not mutually exclusive. They can both exist in the same space. And so, Jesus, what are you doing in the middle of my suffering is that Jesus is endlessly loving us in our suffering. Jeremiah 31:3 says, this is God speaking through Jeremiah, and he says, I have loved you with a never-ending love. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 8, it says, God is love. In Hebrews 13:8, it says that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So think about this. God is love. God loves you with a never-ending love, and God never changes, which means your circumstances aren't dictating how God feels about you. The question becomes, well, how do you know how God feels about you? When our son is out of college now, but when he was little, he had bunk beds. And we had told him, you have to sleep on the bottom bunk beds. You cannot sleep on the top bunk beds. You must sleep on the bottom bunk beds. So one night we put him to bed, everything was fine, just like we had a whole bunch of other times. And it was the middle of the night, it's probably 2 a.m. And all of a sudden we hear this like, boom. And I mean a blood-curdling scream, right? And parents, you know, there's the cry that's like, nothing's wrong. I just want you to come and do whatever I really want you to do. So I'm going to manipulate you with my crying. And then there's like, oh no, something has gone terribly bad. That was this. I mean, I bolted up right from the other side of the house. I run across the house. I go in there. Gavin's laying on the floor and he's holding his arm. And when I pick him up, I turn on the light. His arm doesn't do this. His arm does this. He had crawled up in the top bunk while he was asleep. And yeah, like sleep crawling, walking, climbing. I don't know what he had done. He got up there, and then in the middle of the night, he had rolled out of the bed and he woke up to breaking his arm. Now, I can see the judgment on your face right now. I know what every single one of you are thinking is, well, why didn't you just put some bed rails, like some bunk bed rails? We have them. They were in the closet. So that's a whole other like lesson to learn. Like you can't just have them, you have to use them. But here's the thing. In that moment, did I love Gavin any less as his dad? because he was suffering? No, if anything, his suffering drew out in me all of the love and all of the compassion that I had for him. I mean, the first thing I didn't think was, well, we should discuss. No, you grab them, scoop them up, you try to soothe them, love them. Because in our suffering, Jesus is endlessly loving us. And don't look at your circumstances to tell you whether God is pleased or God is loving you or not. The place you look to know if Jesus is loving you or not is the cross. The cross is the definitive declaration that I love you, not your circumstances. It's the cross. So he goes on in verse 4, but when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. That's a bold promise, right? He looks at him and he says, this thing isn't ending in death. Now, if you know the story, spoiler alert, I'll just tell you because we're gonna get there in a minute, Lazarus dies and then he's raised from the dead. But in the middle of all this, it looks like it's not gonna pan out really, really well. He looks like it is gonna end in death. And so when you go, Jesus, what are you doing in the middle of my suffering? Is that Jesus is faithfully keeping all of his promises in our suffering. I mean, I remember I had an uncle. We used to live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had this uncle, and he had this old, like 70s gold Cadillac. Like this thing was a land yacht. It was huge. And I was little. I was like in elementary school. But this was like 8 people comfortably fit in that sedan. And for some reason, as a little kid, I thought that car was the coolest car ever. We called it Old Gold. It was awesome. And I asked my uncle one time, I was like, hey, when I get older, can I have that car? And he's like, absolutely, you can have that car. Do you know what happened when I turned 16? I didn't get the car. He'd sold the car. Like it's one thing to make a promise. It's another thing to keep every single one of your promises. And 2 Corinthians 1:20 says that every single one of God's promises are yes in Jesus Christ. That anything God has ever promised, they all find their yes, and they are all kept in Jesus Christ. And the way that you know that God keeps his promises, like if the cross will show you how much God loves you, do you know what shows you that God will keep every one of his promises and is able to keep every one of his promises? It's his resurrection. All you have to do is look at the resurrection of Jesus and you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt, there is not anything that he cannot do. If he can defeat death, the last enemy, then he can keep any one of his promises. So he says this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Like the glory of God is like the weightiness of God. That's what that word literally means. You take all of who God is, and if you were to put it on a scale and weigh that thing out, you could never, ever get to the bottom of it. And for us to glorify God, what it means is not just to sing some songs or raise our hands or any of that, though that is wonderful and that is part of what it means. What we ultimately are doing when we glorify God is we're saying, God, you are all of who you are. I'm ascribing back to you all of your worth and all of your weight and all of your value. And what Jesus says here is that all of this that is happening is for the glory of God, so that God may be glorified through it. And so you go, Jesus, what are you doing in my suffering? And it's that Jesus is ultimately revealing God's glory in our suffering. It's for his glory. And you go, well, how can My pain is for his glory. But if you read scripture, you find out that it is in Jesus' death. Listen, John 17:1, Jesus says this. He's staring down death on the cross. And when Jesus had spoken these words, he lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. The hour of greatest suffering, not just his own suffering, but the hour of greatest suffering this world has ever known. He says, the hour has come. Glorify your Son so that the Son may glorify you. That our story is a story of suffering bringing God glory. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 10:31, he says, whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. What he doesn't say in that passage is, hey, whenever it's really good, give God glory. Whenever you win the award, give God the glory. Whenever you score the touchdown, give God the glory. It isn't just when everything is up and to the right to give God the glory. What he says is, whatever happens in your life, glorify God in that thing. Think about this. What could be more God glorifying than when you're at the end of everything? Like you have nothing else left in the midst of your suffering. And you look at God and you go, God, you're worth it. You are more than enough for me in this moment. Everything else may be crumbling away. Everybody else may be walking away. This may hurt worse than anything else. But in the middle of that, the fact that you're with me is more than enough to me. What could be more God glorifying than that? And so it's for God's glory. And I get it. In the middle of suffering, God's glory doesn't seem like the most urgent thing. But it really is the most important thing. And what you really want is for your suffering to serve an ultimate purpose, for it to have a lasting, eternal purpose, and for it to glorify God. So it goes on in verse 5. It says, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he had heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. How about that for love? Right? Verse 7, then after this, he said to his disciples, let us go again to Judea. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again? Jesus answered him, he gives him this really cryptic answer. We don't have time to get into it, but Jesus answers, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because light is not in him. I just picture the disciples going, what? We just said go, like, okay, whatever. After saying these things, he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he's fallen asleep, he'll recover. Now, Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest and sleep. In my mind, I just picture Jesus. He's there with the disciples, and he's like, hey, we're going to go see Lazarus. We're going to wake him up. It's going to be fine. And they go, well, if he's asleep, then just let him wake up whenever he gets up. And Jesus goes, no, guys, come on. Look at me. He's dead. He's dead. So just a little side note, if you find Jesus really hard to understand sometimes, you make a great disciple. It'll be fine. You cannot understand a bunch of stuff, even as like, that's a dead person, and still follow Jesus. It's fine. Verse 14, he says, then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died. And then get this, look at verse 15. And for your sake, I'm glad that I wasn't there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him. That little phrase, for your sake, it literally means for your good. He's saying all of this that I'm doing, yes, it's for God's glory, but it's also for your good. So Jesus, what are you doing in the middle of my suffering? Is Jesus is graciously working for our good in our suffering. Romans 8:28, we know that all things work together for the good of those who love Jesus and are called according to his purposes. That if you're a follower of Jesus, everything God is doing in your life, everything, 100% of it is for your good. It doesn't matter where the suffering is coming from, right? Suffering can come from a lot of different places. Sometimes suffering comes because I do something dumb and I bring suffering on myself. See college. Sometimes I suffer because you do something dumb and I'm the collateral damage of it, right? Like he said he would and he didn't. And now you're suffering. Sometimes we suffer because we just live in the wake of a broken, fallen world. Like cells multiply too fast. Sometimes we suffer because you have an enemy that wants to steal, kill, and destroy. But no matter where that suffering comes from, where it originates from, how it got to you, what you can know beyond a shadow of a doubt is that as a follower of Jesus, every bit of it God is using for your good. Every single bit of it. 1 Peter 5:10 was a verse that I hung on to kind of through my first round of cancer treatment. And it says this: after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace. God is not a God of some grace or sometimes grace or just a little bit of grace. He's a God of all grace. Like the way God operates towards you is all grace. Every bit of it. I know we love to cry fair, right? Like, that's not fair. Let me just tell you something. You don't want fair. You don't. I remember when our kids were little, Sophie was little, she's a couple years younger than Gavin, she was about 2. And being a dad of a daughter is the greatest thing ever. I love it. It is the best. Especially when they're little, they're so cute, right? So one day I'm out, I find this little dress, it's like patchwork, it's like this big. I'd never bought a dress before in my life. So I buy this dress, I wrap it all up, I bring it home, I give it to Sophie. Gavin's over like playing NASCAR, Matchbox cars on the coffee table. And Sophie opens this gift and she holds this dress up and she's like, I love it. And she gets so excited, and she puts it on, twirls it around. And Gavin kind of looks at the side and he goes, that's not fair. And I looked at him and I go, you want fair? Let's go to the store, I'll buy you a dress, buddy. And he's like, nah, that's cool, Dad, I'm good. Like we cry fair. You don't want fair. You don't want to get what you deserve. What you want is grace. You want the unearned, unmerited, ill-deserved favor of God in your life. And as a disciple of Jesus, if you are a follower of Jesus, your suffering is not punishment. It's not. If you are a follower of Jesus, your suffering is not punishment. Now, I know what you're thinking. You look and you go, well, you don't know what I'm doing. And I would kindly say, I don't care. I mean, I care about what you're going through, but I don't have to know, because I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, you are not suffering as punishment. And here's why. Because when Jesus hung on the cross, his final words were, it is finished. And at that moment, he either drank dry the cup of God's wrath and bore all of the punishment of your sin and my sin, or he didn't. He didn't partially do it, and you and I have to complete it. He either took it all or he didn't. And the good news of the gospel is that he took all of our punishment, which means this: the book of Hebrews tells us that you, as a son or a daughter of God through Jesus Christ, what you feel isn't punishment, it's discipling, it's shaping, It's God molding and using the things in your life to conform you to be even the painful ones. Hebrews says sometimes it's painful for a minute, but it's not punishment. It's your heavenly Father in sometimes shaping you to look more like Jesus. So he goes on, and here's what happens. 4 days kind of passes, Lazarus dies. Jesus comes to Bethany. The sisters are hurting, they're mourning, they're grieving. They're probably mad at Jesus for not coming sooner. And each sister in the pain comes to Jesus and says the same thing to him. Here's what they say in verse 21 and verse 32. Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. Now, in that moment, like if I were in Jesus's place, I mean, I'm so glad that Jesus was in Jesus's place and I wasn't, because I would have looked and gone, oh, really? Okay, bye. See ya. But that's not what Jesus does. He doesn't kick them out. He doesn't leave town. He doesn't ream them out for something. Here's what he does. He compassionately comforts them with exactly what they need. Look, Martha comes. Martha needs to be comforted by a theological truth. She wants to have a whole discussion about resurrection and worship and how it's all going to go down. And Jesus goes, okay, is that what you need right now? Do you need some deep theological truth to sink down into your soul so that you can be comforted? Okay, let's talk about that. And then Mary shows up. And he doesn't have a theological discussion with Mary. Mary shows up and Mary's crying. And what does Jesus do? He just weeps with her. It's the shortest verse in all the Bible. Jesus wept. He meets each of them exactly where they need to be met, and he mourns and he comforts them right in the middle of their suffering, right where they need it. So Jesus, what are you doing in the middle of my suffering? Is that Jesus is compassionately comforting us in our suffering. Hebrews 4:15 says, we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. What that means is that Jesus can sympathize with every single thing you've gone through. Apart from sin, he can go, I felt it. I know what you're going through. I'm with you in this thing. When he took on flesh, that's what we celebrate at Christmas, is that we don't have a distant God, but we have a God that entered into the suffering of our world and moved towards it. It's interesting, that little word compassion, the word for it sometimes gets like translated deeply moved or moved. What it means, I probably shouldn't really use the real word of what it means. The nice way of saying it is he's extremely mad. Which means when Jesus looks at their suffering, deep down inside of him, he goes, that's not the way this was supposed to be. That's not the way I want this, and this is not the way it will stay. I'm not gonna sit passively by and let this thing happen. He feels it deep inside of him, and it moves him deep in who he is. So in verse 38, it says, then Jesus, deeply moved, there it is, again came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. If you've been in church, if you showed up on Easter, like little bells should start going off right now. Little lights on your dashboard should go, wait a second, guy dead for a few days in a cave, all right? Those should start like flashing for you right now. Jesus said, take the stone away. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, by this time there'll be an odor, for he's been dead for 4 days. They go, okay, you roll that thing away. Like, we mummified him, right? We wrapped him up, we packed him in herbs and oil and all this kind of stuff. But that's been 4 days he's been sitting in a cave in the Middle East. Just, you roll that thing back, be ready. What they're saying is, he's dead, 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 dead. 4 days dead, he stinketh. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Jesus lifted up his eyes and he said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me. But I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." When he said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." Which I imagine he had to say Lazarus, because if he just said, "come out," a bunch of dead people would have come walking out of all the graves. So he had to go just that one. There'll be a minute when the rest of you all can get up. You, come here. You have to read your Bibles. It's interesting. Watch this. "Lazarus, come out." And the man who had died came out with his hands and feet bound with linen strips and his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Now, when I read that story, if you just hear the story, like Jesus says, "Lazarus, come out," and Lazarus comes, we think Lazarus just comes walking out of the tomb, right? No, they had him, it just said it, they had him bound with linen strips around his hands and his face. He's packed with all this, he more comes hopping out of this thing. It's a little comical. So he comes hopping out of this thing. He's completely bound up. He's alive, but look at him. He's still all wrapped up in these grave clothes. He's still all wrapped up in the thing that signifies his suffering. And then look what Jesus says. He said to who? Said to, what's it say next? Said to them. He doesn't look at Lazarus and go, "Hey, Lazarus, get yourself out of this trouble. I got you up. Now you take it the rest of the way and get yourself the rest of the way out of this. You should be inspired, Lazarus, now that I raised you from the dead." That's not what he says. Lazarus can't do anything for himself. He's still all wrapped up in his suffering. And he looks at the people standing around and he goes, "You unbind him. You get around him and you take off the things that signify that suffering. You come around him." So Jesus, what are you doing in my suffering? Is that Jesus is giving us a community to help us walk into new life in our suffering. When I was about 12 years old, still living in Nashville, and it was late one summer night, and we were all outside, parents, all my friends, everything. So we got this crazy idea, a bunch of my friends, is that we were gonna go up to the top of the hill and we were gonna race our dirt bikes down this hill, and the first person to the bottom of the hill was gonna win, and they were gonna be the best of summer or whatever it was. And so we go up to the top of the hill, all the parents are outside, and we get on our dirt bikes, and it's ready, set, and in my mind I think, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. This hill goes down, and as it comes down, my yard is right here, and everybody's gonna go like this. But I learned in school, shortest point between two points is a straight line. So I'm like, you know what, when everybody turns, I'm going straight through my yard. So we go flying down this hill. Everybody turns. I go straight through my yard. I just didn't factor in that between the road and my yard is a curb. And I hit that curb, and I fly on my dirt bike, and I'm going. For a second, it's cool. And then all of a sudden, my dirt bike goes falling away from me, and I'm just Supermaning through the air. And what goes up must come down. And I came down, and when I landed like that. And your bones are not white. I know that because they both came out of my arm. My mom looks at that, screams, runs inside. She grabs a cookie sheet, a Southern Living magazine, and a roll of duct tape. It's the most redneck thing, y'all. I mean, it's the South. And she comes running out. She puts my arm on her cookie sheet, wraps it in a Southern Living, and then duct tapes my arm to this cookie sheet. So we're going into the hospital with my arm duct taped to a cookie sheet. There's a problem, and bones are sticking out. Here's the thing. How ridiculous would it have been? How insane would it have been in that moment when my mom comes out and is like, all right, let's get in the car. We're going to the hospital. And I go, hey, Mom, you know what? I've thought about it. I'd be a little embarrassed to go into the hospital right now. This is kind of my thing. Why don't we wait for this to heal up? And then when everything's better, then I'll go to the hospital and I'll tell the doctors how my arm healed. That would be a better, I really think we should just wait it out. What if we went inside and kind of went, we just hung out for, a few weeks. And then when it all gets better, then we'll come back out. That's ridiculous, isn't it? It's ridiculous because you go, that's what the hospital is there for. The hospital is there for dumb preteen boys whose synapses don't fire and launch their dirt bike. You go, that's exactly what it's designed to do. And I would go, that's exactly what the church is designed to do. And so many of us in our suffering hide it. Or we think, okay, I'm going through something. I'm going to go away for a while, and then I'll come back. And when everything's better, I'll tell everybody how God healed it and did it and all that sort of stuff. But what we're doing is we're hiding. And we're running away from the community that God designed to be a place of healing for us. For you and I to be unbound and unwound and walk out our suffering and into newness of life. I remember after the first surgery I had for my cancer, we were sitting in church, and in my church, I sit right over there. And the first song starts, and the music plays, and the first person begins to sing, and I go to sing, and I could talk. It was a little gravelly at that point. I went to sing, and it just went, and literally not a sound could come out of my mouth. I couldn't do it. Something on my vocal nerve had happened in the surgery, and it just hadn't healed yet, and it wouldn't connect right to my vocal nerve. I don't know what it was, but I'm not a good singer, y'all. I'm terrible. It's bad. I have no rhythm, no pitch, nothing. I love it, I'm just bad. And so I sit on the front row so there's nobody in front of me and I can just sing as loud as I want, right? So I go to sing, and all I wanted to do was get back in church and sing, and I couldn't do it. And I thought, okay, is this the rest of my life? Do I have to spend the rest of my life just unable to worship God? And I turned around at that moment, and I looked at the rest of the congregation. I remember thinking, all right, God, I don't know if this is forever. I don't know if it's tonight. I don't know if it's for a couple weeks, but would you take their singing, and would you somehow supernaturally count it as mine? I can't do it. And that's what the church was designed. Don't run from the community. God put some people around you so that when you can't, they can, right? When you hurt, they can heal. That's what it was designed to do. I remember when our son went off to college, I sat him down and I go, all right, Gavin, here's the thing. It will happen, right? There will be the night where it doesn't go well for you. So let's just be honest, that night will come. When it comes, you're probably not gonna wanna call me. Plus I live hours away. I go, so who are you gonna call? Who? Give me a name of a person you're gonna call. And he gave me a name, and I said, okay, here's my credit card. Go buy that person lunch and tell them they're the one that's getting the call in the middle of the night. Who are you gonna call? You don't have to say it out loud, but it's not a rhetorical question. When I say, when you're in your suffering, who are you gonna call? Who's your middle of your night friend? Who's the one that Jesus is gonna say, I appointed them to unbind you? Who is that? And if you don't have that person, I would beg you, find that person, and this place is the place you can find it. It's a little bit like saving for retirement. Once you hit retirement, it's too late to begin saving for it. So go ahead and start making deposits so that when you need to draw on that thing in your suffering, the relationships are there. Now, here's the last thing as we close this up. All of this is not about Lazarus. It's not about Lazarus. You know who this is all about, don't you? All of this is pointing, all of this occurred so that Jesus could say, there's coming a day and I'm gonna die. They're gonna put Jesus' body in the tomb and they would resurrect Jesus. And when that happens, you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can live in hope no matter what you're going through. All of this was to point us to the ultimate hope in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. So Jesus, what are you doing in my suffering? Is that ultimately Jesus is pointing us to himself that we could find ultimate hope in him. This whole thing is about him. Revelation 21:4 says that there is a day that is coming. Now I want you to picture this. There's a day that is coming where we are gonna stand before Jesus. And this is what it says. He, Jesus, will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Think about that. That as a believer, you will stand before Jesus and he himself will wipe away every pain and hurt you have in your life. Death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. The way they would say in the Chronicles, all the bad things are coming undone. And we know that will be true because Jesus was raised from the dead. You don't have to live in wishful thinking. You don't have to live in denial. You don't have to shove it down deep. You don't have to white knuckle it. You don't have to try harder. You can rest in the fact that you may get your healing now. You may even get it for a minute and then it may come back 2 years later, but in the end, you will get it. The God of all grace will himself restore, establish, confirm, and strengthen you. And so here's how we're gonna end this. One is if you have somebody in your life who's suffering right now, like you're doing great, but they're suffering, take them the casserole. Do the casserole thing. It's great, okay? We live in the South, live it up. You should deliver the casserole with all the little potato chips on top. Do it. But when you bring them the casserole, just go, hey, I love you. Can I tell you some good news? And then maybe you could just share some good news. Not some good advice, not some tips or tricks. You just give them a hug and say, you know what? Jesus loves you right now. God's working for your good right now. There is coming a time when all this is going away and you just sling some good news towards them. Maybe you're walking through some suffering right now. And the only way I know to tell you to walk through suffering is to do it with Jesus. And maybe you've been trying to do it alone. And so maybe tonight would be the night that you would surrender and put away trying to get through it on your own. And you would finally just collapse and fall into the arms of Jesus who loves you, who died for you, who rose from the dead for you. And maybe for the first time, you would surrender your life to him. And you would come to trust in him, not just believe about him, but trust in him for the first time. And then here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pray. The band's gonna come up here and we're gonna sing some songs. And I'm gonna ask members of the care team to come up front. And listen, I'm not a faith healer, okay? But I do believe the Bible. And the book of James says, if any of you are sick, if any of you are suffering, then then call the elders, call the pastors, call the leaders of the church, and you pray. And so here's what I want to do. I want us to do what the Bible tells us to do, which is to pray. And if I'm saying it right now and you're thinking, yeah, but then everybody's gonna see, broken arm. Don't hide. Come, we love you. Nobody is looking at you sideways. Don't be embarrassed. You come and you be prayed for. And if you're thinking it's too small, it's a big deal to you. And it's suffering to you. You be healed of that suffering. You be prayed for in that. You come, let's seek God in the middle of our suffering. Because he said, if you seek me, I will be found. I will be found. So would you stand? Let's pray together.